I would say I'm an objectively cringy person, despite cringe being a completely subjective word. On the cringe Venn diagram comprised of every weird thing you can possibly do, I sit about square in the middle. I consume some of the most notoriously cringy and off-putting pieces of media, like Has Been Hotel or The Amazing Digital Circus. I regularly use Gacha Life. Like yesterday, I was sick, and I want to say I made a minimum of 3 videos. I watch anime and read fan fiction. I'm a brony with a cosplay count in the year of our Lord 2026, and I attend conventions. Last year I went to Ross's in full cosplay. I really sincerely liked K-pop Demon Hunters, and I'm a Bakudeku shipper that cried watching the finale of My Hero Academia. I have a flag of Caitlin Kierman on my wall behind my bed, a Hanji Zoe cardboard cutout behind me, and it's right next to my anime figurine shelf. I use Twitter, play Undertale, had an Among Us OC, unironically listen to Baby No Money, and enjoy going to school. Plus, I'm a theater kid and a K-pop stan at the same time. Dang, double homicide. I dress alternatively. I speak up against social justice. I'm a woman. I use they, them pronouns. I'm queer. I take up space. I'm 17. And when I was 13 and the COVID-19 pandemic ended, I watched my peers grow out of their cringy bisexual phases, sell their wigs, and grow out their hair. Was I obligated to do the same? No, of course not. That's a stupid question. To be cringe is to be free. Being cringe is to be myself and to be interesting and honest, authentic, and cool. So why is it even cringe at all? How deep does cringe culture run? And why are you so afraid of authenticity? I was about 11 when the COVID lockdown started, and I was halfway through middle school when it ended, so unfortunately one of the most fundamental phases of development socially in my life. I'd always been a weird kid. Like, I brought fake potatoes to school and drew faces on them and signed all my papers as Potato Twin number 1. I was also an anime kid, sort of. I really liked Pokemon and Naruto, the classics. However, in the year of our Lord, 2019, I was introduced to the show with the most infamously cringy fandom in history, My Hero Academia. Now, the word cringe has been around forever, and its popularity really grew in the early 2000s in online forums and fandom spaces. As described by Caitlin Tiffany in her article for The Atlantic, as a term, cringe took off in forums in the early aughts when the practice of humiliating oneself online was still somewhat novel. Early cringe culture saw itself as an exclusive little group, calling people who didn't have as extensive enough internet knowledge normies. Flash forward to 2020, with nothing left to do during the pandemic, these so-called normies started integrating into online spaces, including the My Hero fandom. This sudden explosion in fandom culture, mixed with high exposure to others' actions on social media, birthed some of the most memorable fandom incidents ever. From the Todoroki Gives Birth Alone YouTube video to the Dobby Hawks incident, the My Hero fandom became known and hated for its fandom, regardless of the show's content. Screen Rant even dubbed the phenomenon when a fandom abruptly dissipates when deemed cringe due to the actions of individuals within the fandom or the fandom being reevaluated as a whole, the My Hero Academia effect. That's insane work. And I thrived in this fandom. I started cosplaying in 2020 and I'm still doing it 6 years later. Maybe it's cringe, but I'm okay with that. A lot of people look back on their actions during the pandemic and went to how they acted, how they were cringe and embarrassing, but I honestly think that's a really sad way to look at it. You didn't dress up as Minecraft YouTubers or anime characters in your room because you were cringe. You did it because you were fun. During this period of isolation, there wasn't a fear of social ostracization or judgment. Everyone had a chance to discover their identity, style, and interests free from the variables that usually suppress individuality. As time moved forward, we tend to forget the value in participating in fandom, interacting with your interests. Unapologetic enjoyment has become shameful. When this idea of cringe is examined, it can be found that it's largely weaponized against and felt by one group more than others: women. Cringe has evolved from an expression of individuality to a buzzword used against people who are unconventionally expressive. In order to ensure one doesn't deviate from social norms in their work, art, or behavior, cringe is hung over women's head as a shame-oriented motivator to keep quiet and be nothing worth distinguishing. Women are deemed cringe for interacting passionately with social justice, standing out, or pursuing careers that others may deem unrealistic. It's much easier to tell a woman her actions or interests are cringe than it is to evaluate why you can't stomach authenticity from her. Now, of course, this shame doesn't just disproportionately affect women. It's often a harmful cover-up for ableism, especially online. Many neurodivergent people with intense interests or passions are included in cringe compilations and turned into lolcows overnight. A quick scroll on any cringe repost account will reveal the devastating amount of cringe content that's purely a neurodivergent person on camera. But this disservice done to neurodivergent people isn't isolated. It branches into other forms of bigotry perpetuated by cringe culture. Around 11% of transgender individuals and alternative pronoun users are also on the autism spectrum. I've been using they, them pronouns for almost 6 years at this point, and I can vividly remember the moment when me and my peers started going to school again after the pandemic ended, and I became aware that I was the only person in my friend group at the time who kept their queer identity. In science class, kids pulled up old videos from when they'd identified as transgender and mocked their past selves for daring to explore the labels that I still clung to. The negative treatment of these people from before cringe culture became prevalent was clearly identifiable as bullying and harassment, but the shift in vocabulary from traditionally mean comments to dubbing a video or statement cringeworthy has allowed blatant ableism, homophobia, and sexism to slip through the cracks. Cringe culture is bullying, point blank, and it's potent. I'm expecting that just by making this video, I'm going to run into the same wall that many people like me find when they examine the nuance in something like this, and that is, of course, the statement, it's not that deep. Yes, it is. It's deeper actually, but I have 10 minutes max. Refusing to examine the harm in language or culture doesn't make you nonchalant. Having to preface all your opinions with a layer of irony or humor is, dare I say, cringe. You are cringe. You are afraid of authenticity, and it's pathetic. What value is a life where a person restricts the television and music they consume, the way they dress, the hobbies they participate in, and the conversations they have because they are afraid of how their authenticity will be perceived? To be cringe is to be free. And when I think about it, I picture this image. We are in a prison of our own creation. In her article for Media, Ursula Sturgeon asks, are people truly being cringy, or are they having the courage to live as themselves in a world that discourages it? All this to say, it's cringe to deny yourself the ability to enjoy what you love. This summer, me and some of my friends went to see the K-pop Demon Hunters sing along in theaters. We sang super loud and danced in front of the whole theater during the credits, and it was super fun. I would argue that the highlights of my life are some of the cringiest moments I could possibly describe, but I'm not ashamed of that. When I first became close with my current group of friends, I made a sort of pact with myself that I wouldn't hide any of my interests or feelings from them, and with that came me telling them very earnestly and vulnerably, I love you. This was something I hadn't been able to do with friends before because this area outside the realm of irony and brain rot had cringed them out. It's that experience, to me, that really cements the roots of cringe culture in our current climate's fear of authenticity. Being unapologetic is scary. It's brutal, raw, and unforgiving. But it's not gone. This disgust towards expression is not innate. We can change. I think we have a duty to ourselves to try.